I'm Dr. Paula Koger. You know, I hesitate to even call myself doctor because I'm a doctor of Oriental medicine. I'm a doctor who studied everything in the world, literally, going to Europe for 5 years, working for the military schools as a school health educator when I was a nurse. Back in the days when I was a nursing professor, I've studied it all. I've studied acupuncture, Jinshin Jitsu, massage therapy, exogetic color therapy, emotional transformation therapy. Well, the list goes on, and it's on my website, www.wealthofhealthcenter.com. You know, there's a part of me that is very excited about talking to you because I want to start what I'm going to call the University of Healthy Life. And the course is free, and the only degree you'll get is health. How much is that worth? A lot, huh? So I realized that I had a gift when I came into this world. I would tell my parents or my grandparents, my grandmother's having a stroke, and they would tell me to go away and mind my own, play with my dolls, and I would do that, and my grandmother had a stroke, and then she died. And my grandfather, I told them that he was having a stroke, and he did. And then they told me to go in there and heal him, and I put my hands on him and I asked Jesus to heal my grandfather. And guess what Jesus did? He did it! My grandfather lived a long time, allowed me to go to college, took care of us, raised tobacco. I loved him. I loved my grandmother. She was one of those natural gardeners and used white salve, which was an animal healing salve, and sulfur and iodine and natural things to heal that were very effective. I'll tell you why. Because she believed in them. And I believed in them because she believed in them. And they worked. I remember my little dog Snowball came out one morning early and growling at the window, and oh, did I love Snowball. Oh, he was a little white Spitz. And he had been down in the holler in the hills in Kentucky, and he had a big gouge in his side, and it was bleeding, and his insides were hanging out. And my grandmother just simply put them back in, put some big globs of white salve in him, rolled a sheet around his abdomen to hold it all together. I'm sure she prayed. And guess what? Yes, Snowball got perfectly well. Lived a long time. That's the way my life was. I expected miracles, and we got miracles. We didn't have a doctor in anywhere near where we were. We didn't have a vehicle that could get to one, even if we did. It's a long way on a tractor or on a mule. So I grew up. I really honestly didn't know anything about Chinese medicine, so I went, or anything else. I went to nursing school at FSU. I noticed that there was a lot going on that wasn't being treated when I was being a nurse, and I became a nursing professor teaching more humane touch therapies and went to see Dr. Dolores Krieger at New York University, took her course in therapeutic touch, came back to where I was teaching, and a student came to me and said, my fingers, these fingers are numb. And I put my hand on the back of her head around the cervical vertebra, which tends to compress that part of the body, and in a few seconds, minutes. I don't know, it wasn't very long. The sensation came back in her hand and fingers, and she was excited, and she went running off to the woman who was the head of the department and told her. Now, I had been sent there by the college because the vice president wanted me to bring more humane treatments. Dr. Scaglione. He wanted me to bring more humane treatments to the nursing profession. He wanted more compassion and he wanted more caring. Why in the world he cared, I don't know, but he certainly did. So he agreed for me to go, and they paid for it. And when I came back and showed the results of the therapeutic course, the nurses on the faculty were appalled. So when they called me in to give me whatever they were going to give me as a lecture, a disapproval, this doesn't belong in the field of nursing, I looked at them and I looked at my professor, nursing head of the department, and I said, don't worry about it. I resign. I'm going to take my gifts and utilize them. I'm going to go where I can express myself fully. And I packed my things up and left. Gave up a tenured faculty position. Well, that was the trail I was destined to travel. And it has led me to the assisting of many, many people to regain their health. And I feel that it is my calling to share what I know with you. And if it fits for you, then it'll be a fit for you. Now, here's what I've discovered. What's right for one person isn't right necessarily for another. So the biggest job we have in healthcare is to find out whether or not something is going to be right for someone else or right for you. Quite often people get a sense of what's right for them, and they're able to follow that sense. But if there are blocks to being able to feel what's right for you, and say yes to what's right for you, and no to what's not right for you, then you cannot and you will not make the choices that are good for you. My job as a healthcare provider, as I have determined it to be, according to the instructions I have received from my source of all good, is to help you determine what is good for you and what isn't good for you. And learn to know the difference. And learn, as Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said, each patient must become their own doctor. Now, he didn't explain that a lot, so that took a while for me to figure that one out, but I've always respected the founders, the originators, the experts, the geniuses, the original people. So I found that through kinesiology, which is testing the strength and weakness of a person's body, like an arm or a leg, to the introduction of a certain substance into that field, into that person's energy, and testing whether or not it made them stronger or weaker or made them feel better or worse. I've been able to help people find things that will help them. And it has worked thousands of times. I want to choose and help people choose what is going to make their energy stronger. The difference between chemicals and natural substances is that natural substances amplify the energy field, which makes us stronger. If we're stronger, we have more resistance. If we have more resistance, we can express ourselves more, we can play more, we can love more, we can move around and be happy, regardless of what life brings. But now here's another thing, a big thing. The biggest, most neglected thing in healthcare, as I know it, is that what's most neglected, besides the energy field, that's huge. Nobody's testing out there much about what is going to help or not help, or how weak or strong it makes you, or how much it activates the function of an organ or diminishes the function of an organ. The essential, important data that has to be assessed in order to get a health healing response. The other thing that has to be assessed is what is in the patient, what is in the person seeking health, what is in the way of the person who's seeking health getting it. What's the block? Because if you look at life, at energy is a little running through many, many little channels in our brain, in our heart, in our kidney, in our liver, in our veins. Energy is the flow of life force. It's electrical. We understand computers better than we understand our electrical field. It extends beyond the body. We have a big aura of energy around us. We have chakras that tend to get blocked when our energy isn't flowing through us in the center of our body. And when we have a strong emotion that's more strong than we can handle, it actually can overcharge an organ or undercharge an organ or block an organ. Like resentment is a typical organ blocker. It blocks the gallbladder. And now the abdomen starts to expand because it's blocked in that area right below the rib cage. It blows up and we get our gallbladders removed because they become inflamed, because the resentment and decreases our ability to assimilate fats and support our digestive system in assimilating carbohydrates, so we blow up. But no, do we go in and find out what the resentment is? No, not often. Not much. Not too much. No, last thing we do, ask ourselves, what am I resenting? What do I resent? Why do I resent this? Well, there's usually a lot to it. So it's not easy. And so people aren't trained as to how to search out the causes of disease, which turn out to be stress, which turn out to be unresolved subconscious, meaning we don't know it's there, emotional responses. Subconscious blocks. So let's look at one possible cause of resentment. Let's say I'll take me for example. I don't mind. My mother left my father, and she never spoke of him. So I resented my mother not speaking of him. What happened? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just lay the cards on the table? Now I got to imagine all these things, and I have to try to discover for myself what's in me that was in my dad so that I can heal. Well, finally, at age 30, I asked my mother, "Can you tell me one thing about my father?" She said, "He used to look up to the window when he was coming home, and he used to ask me, 'How's my girl?'" That was me. Well, that was a sweet thing to know, and I'm very grateful for it. However, there were a lot of stored resentments in me about what I didn't know about my father. Turns out it was probably the best thing that she left him. And it could have been a better thing had she told me why. I would have been able to assimilate and accept the strength and virtue of her move. I would have been able to eliminate all resentment and not carry it for about 50 years. Although I didn't swell up. I released enough of it through humor and expression of myself that it didn't soar up. I didn't really know the resentment was there. You see, that's the thing that we are here to do, if I may say so, from my point of view. Now, it's okay with me if you have another point of view and you don't agree. I don't want to force you to agree. I just want to let you know that I have helped thousands of people eliminate thousands of conditions, including cancers, including ulcers, including arthritis, including inflammatory heart disease, all of it, by getting to what's blocking the flow of energy. And the energy channels are so specific as to what they block. Like the stomach meridian blocks here, comes up here and blocks here when it's not working well. So you might get sinus condition that has nothing to do with anything but the stomach. And when you look into the stomach is an organ that holds inadequacy, a pattern of inadequacy, a disbelief in yourself, and it also leads to the shutdown of hydrochloric acid. So we've got to get both adequacy and hydrochloric acid flowing again, and then get this meridian or energy channel of the stomach, which goes also down the leg, the outer side. We got to get it flowing again. These pathways are the doorways as well to our health. Now you say, well, how do you know something's there? How do you find out if something's there that's blocking me from feeling adequate? Well, you can ask yourself, like, feeling adequate is something that when you're growing up and people always telling you, sit down and shut up, or you're wrong about that again, or why didn't you make an A in this subject? You understand that's where they come from. That's one place. A lot of times there's a big incident that was very traumatic that's stored inside of us that really shut things down. And finding those can usually best be done with the assistance of someone guiding us to let it go, to know it, and then to let it go. So we might ask ourselves a question. Do I know what causes my stomach to be less functional than I want it to be?